Right before the NHL season began, I went through and named 15 different NHL players that I thought were going to break out in a big way this year. And today, we're going to be going through all these picks to see how bad, how good I did, and grading them all from A+ down to F. So how did my predictions do a few months later? Well, make sure you watch till the end for every single one of them and hit that subscribe button if you're new for more predictions, more hockey content just like this every single weekday all throughout the year. Also, let me know in the comments down below, folks, how you guys are enjoying the new release schedule over the past couple of months, every weekday, Monday through Friday. Let me know if it's working out for you guys. If you guys are enjoying it, it's probably the best for me to get the most videos out to y'all, and I've been enjoying it quite a bit. Now here it is, folks, the 15 players will break out in 2024, and I've gone through and graded every single one of these picks, and there's some pretty big divergence here. There's some really good ones, some really bad ones, and I can't wait to get into it. Now, I would love to say that we start off the predictions with a bang, but we absolutely did not. For my first breakout player, it's Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Let's get into this one here. This one might honestly be the one that's the most disappointing to me because at the start of the year, it was looking like a fantastic pick. In his first 12 games, he had 5 goals, 7 assists, 12 points. He was a beast in the second half last year of Carolina and was starting off the year at a great rate as well. But then pretty much after that, he did nothing. After getting 12 points in 12 games, his next 12 points would come in 54 games. And there was a massive stretch there after November and January where it was just disgustingly bad with Kotkaniemi. I couldn't believe how bad it was getting. With what we saw last year, him getting 43 points in 82 games, I thought this was the time for Kotkaniemi to really step into that second line center role completely and fill it in a great position too. But even though the year started out great for him, it just wasn't meant to be. And even in that fourth line center role, it didn't really feel like he was fitting entirely. Even though he's a pretty smart player, there will be times where he's just invisible because of that lack of pure pop in his game. And unfortunately, we've seen that really exacerbated this year at Carolina. And you can see 24 points in 66 games, and it got so bad to the fact that Jack Drury was playing as a second line center instead of him. And that just shows the inconsistencies in Kotkaniemi's game this year. I really couldn't give this pick anything other than an F, and unfortunately for Kotkaniemi, it's not the breakout year I predicted. Thankfully for me, though, my next pick would be a lot better, and it would end up being Quinton Byfield of the LA Kings. Now, just like Kotkaniemi, this was another case where Byfield was pretty great in the second half and looked really good for LA down the stretch, and got 22 points in 53 games last year of LA, and I thought looked pretty good in the playoffs as well, and I thought this was the year that we'd see him become an established full-time NHLer. No more AHL games for Byfield. No more. And what we've seen this season, it has been absolutely correct, and in some ways has even surpassed my expectations, honestly. In 63 games, he has 19 goals, 28 assists for 47 points. The goal scoring has really improved, and that's been, I think, one of the biggest things for me that I wanted to see him really get better in. But we've seen the impact that he has had, the way he's using his body, how good his skating is. Everything that I wanted to see out of Byfield in his draft year is starting to be fully realized, and he's only 21 friggin' years old, man. You know what? We're going to go from an F right to an A+. Even though Kotkaniemi failed me, Byfield still has my back. Now, this next one is pretty interesting. At number 3, I had Zach Werenski of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, my hope coming into the year with Werenski is that, one, he would have a finally healthy season and that we'd see him not have a major injury that would send him back again, and that we'd see him be around that 60, maybe even 70-point plateau, because this is a guy that I thought, when healthy, still has so much to give. And one of those has kind of happened, and the other has kind of happened as well. With Werenski, he's kind of stayed healthy. He had one injury, but in 54 games, he has 4 goals, 35 assists for 39 points, and has really carried that Columbus defense. It is so much better when he's out there. And you can see, I mean, the plus minus is obviously a flawed stat, but the fact that on Columbus, he's a plus is insane. And even though his offense hasn't been unreal, I think we've kind of seen him improve some of the defensive ability in ways. And 50 points projected isn't bad either, but I feel like Werenski just having that somewhat healthy season is so important here. And for Werenski, he's projected to have 70+ games played this season, which would be the first time since 2019. And even though we're still kind of waiting for him to have that fully healthy season, still, I'll take the progress. And even though it isn't a full breakout year, I'm still going to give the pick a C+. Now, at number 4, I predicted Filip Tomasino of the Nashville Predators. And this one, just like Kotkaniemi, I'm really disappointed by. I had a few predictions relating to Nashville coming into the year. I thought that they would make the playoffs. I thought that UC Saros would be in the Hart Trophy conversation. And I also thought that Filip Tomasino would break out in a big way. I thought this was the year for him to do it as a 24th overall pick back in 2019. And you can see in the NHL the past couple of years, some pretty good point totals. And he got 18 points in 31 games last year, was another player that in that last month looked really good and point production wise. how that was going to carry that over onto this year, but he never really got or stuck at the NHL level completely, and he really didn't get that much time on ice either. He finished with 20 points in 41 games, but is back down to the AHL with the Milwaukee Admirals, which I do think is good for him. I think being still in the AHL at this point is fine with how little he's proved with the overall game, but I feel like in Nashville's system, there was so much opportunity to jump into the lineup and establish himself truly as an NHLer. I mean, even now, I think there's the possibility that he could do that. I mean, you have Anthony Beauvillier on their second line, and even though I saw Nashville making the playoffs, I thought the youth would be a big reason for that. But Tomasino was just a player that never really stuck completely, which sucks, but hopefully next year is the year that he does it. I'm going to give the pick a straight D because when he did play, he was okay and got some points here and there, but that sticking to the NHL prediction hasn't happened yet. Oh boy, let's talk about this one, shall we? So, I predicted Jamie Drysdale to have a breakout year this season, and like Werenski, I hoped and predicted that he would have a healthy year and that we'd see him be established as one of the Ducks' future top 4D, and that has not happened. In fact, pretty much the opposite has happened. He's gotten traded, gone to a different team, and hasn't stayed healthy either. When you look at what this season has brought, he only played 10 games of Anaheim getting 5 points in him, and of course got traded to the Philadelphia Flyers, and has been a disaster. I mean, that's just the thing here, is that last year we only saw him play 8 games after a full really solid rookie season. And with how disappointing that major injury was in 2023, I thought this year we'd see him back in the lineup for Anaheim and hopefully showing what he was made of, like we saw him do in 2022. But it just didn't happen. And even in the games he did play for Anaheim, he was okay. And then he went to Philly and it started off pretty well. It looked pretty good. Those first couple of games looked pretty solid in his department. But after that, the defense just really fell off a cliff and he just really wasn't making the impact he should have been in Philly's system. And of course, got injured again. I still think there's potential for Drysdale to be a top 4 offensive D, but at this point, he just needs to play games. He needs to get in the lineup. He needs to actually establish himself, and I'm going to give the pick a straight F. With how badly he's played and with how bad the health has been, I couldn't give it anything else. Now we move on to number 6, and I got Tyler Bertuzzi of the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is kind of a weird one, honestly. Coming into the year, I was actually a pretty major fan of the Bertuzzi and Domi additions. I thought for Toronto, adding some sandpaper as well as some good scoring ability would be really important. And I thought for Bertuzzi, we'd see him have a pretty healthy year, and especially on that top 6, if he's going to be playing with Matthews or Marner, whatever they end up doing could do really, really well. And he's done fine. Same thing with Max Domi, but hasn't really propelled himself as this pure difference maker that Toronto maybe wanted him to be, which I thought he could be. I mean, you see what he was able to do back in 2022, 62 points, 30 goals in 68 games for Detroit. He was a beast. And I thought that this guy, if he was healthy, could reach those lengths again. And even though he stayed pretty healthy, on pace for 81 games this year, or 81 games, he has 39 points, has been pretty solid, but again, nothing overwhelming. I think that lack of goal scoring has kind of haunted him a little bit, and even though it's gotten a little bit better, I think that lack of finishing has really hurt his production this year. We'll see if that's able to get a little bit better down the stretch and in the playoffs, but Bertuzzi hasn't been as much of a difference maker as I thought. I'm going to give the grade a C. It was okay, but nothing amazing either. Now going on to the next player here, I would have absolutely taken a C for this one, folks. This might be the worst prediction out of the bunch, and I actually like the Joonas Korpisalo signing for Ottawa. I know, boo me, whatever you want to do, but I thought last year he was great on his struggling Columbus team, a 913 save percentage in 28 games. Then he got traded to LA and was pretty great there. In 11 games, got a 921 save percentage. And even though he kind of floundered in those last couple of playoff games, he started the playoffs out amazingly well. And I thought in Ottawa's system as the main guy, after what we saw the year before, that we'd see him be a pretty good starter and have him be a big reason why Ottawa improves in a major way. But he's been the worst starting goaltender in the entire NHL this year, an 889 save percentage and an absolutely awful goal save above expected. And the only hope is that he can just get a little bit better at this point because it ain't looking good whatsoever. Also, the grade is an F, if you couldn't tell already. Now, we're doing a little bit better here at number 8, and next up, I got Alex Newhook, newly of the Montreal Canadiens. And so far, I think it's turned out pretty well, even though he had that major injury which set him back for a couple of months. When he has played, I thought offensively he's done pretty solid, and has been a very efficient forward, playing on their second line now as well. And you can see in 39 games, he has 10 goals, 12 assists for 22 points. if he played in that full pace, maybe he'd be around 50 points or so, which would be a pretty good breakout campaign for him. And this is a guy that I think for Montreal was a great addition in the offseason, somebody that could really push their offense in a big way in that middle six. And so far, we've seen that happen. Not the most exciting addition by any means by Montreal, but looking like a pretty good young addition. And Marty St. Louis has definitely got the most out of him so far. I'm going to give the pick a solid B. I think it's worked out pretty well for Montreal, and he's still pretty young too, just turning 23 this January. Now, at number 9, I had to predict my boy Wyatt Johnston to have a breakout season, and so far it's working out pretty well. Now, of course, as a 23rd overall pick back in 2021, he has already come into the NHL and played fantastically last year, getting 41 points, 24 goals in 82 games. And I thought he looked really, really solid in the playoffs as well. Even though the points aren't unreal or anything, he got 6 points in 19 games as a rookie, which I think is pretty great. And to me, I thought this next year we would see him take an even bigger jump, get around that 60 or 65 point range, and be a guy that really pushes play even more, uses his skill set in an even bigger direction. The IQ and the positioning was already there as an NHLer, but I wanted to see even more offensive production. And so far, we've seen that. As a 20-year-old, he has 52 points in 68 games this year, and has been a major part of Dallas's offense. Him and Stankoven have been absolutely unreal together, and the fact they've already worked out so well, Johnson has already become so good, just blesses my heart, but he's worked out as perfect as I could imagine for him, honestly. And I'm going to give the pick A+. As one of the Stars' best players this year, Johnny continues to impress. Now, at number 10, I predicted next up from the Boston Bruins, Pavel Zacha, which has also kind of been a little bit of a weird one so far this year. Now, coming into the year, this was a pretty easy prediction to make. With Bergeron and Krejci both retiring, Zacha was really the next guy up to play with a Pastrnak or a Marchand and just get so many points just being on the line with them. And it's kind of happened this year. In 64 games, he has 45 points. Not bad whatsoever, but he's not on pace to get more than he did last year. And that's the big thing for me, is that I thought we'd see him get past that 60-point mark, that we'd see him really benefit from having those superstars alongside him, but that hasn't quite happened. He's still been okay and still been solid, but hasn't exactly broken out like I really expected him to. I'm going to give the pick a straight C. It wasn't bad, but he didn't surpass my expectations at all. Now, at number 11, this one was also fascinating. I predicted Sean Durzi, who had been recently acquired by the Arizona Coyotes, to have a breakout year of his own. And coming into the year, Durzi was a fascinating case as a, 24-year-old at that point. He, of course, was a second-round pick in exchange for him by Arizona. And you can see over the past couple of years some pretty good production as an offensive D. And in his last year of LA, 38 points in 72 games. But coming into this Arizona system, I knew that he would be the guy. He would be getting as much power play opportunity as possible. And I thought that was really going to rise his statistics, maybe getting around the 50-point area as well. And that hasn't necessarily happened. I think he started off the year a lot better than he's kind of ended here. But still, 32 points in 61 games. He's been that power play guy for Arizona, and offensively has been looking pretty good. The point production has been disappointing, but with Durzi, he's still pretty young, and I think can reach those marks once Arizona gets a little more competitive around him. Still, though, it wasn't a smash home run or anything. I'm going to give the pick a B-. He's been good in that role, but not an overwhelming breakout player. Now, my first Coyotes prediction went a lot better than my second Coyotes prediction, because at number 12, I have Barrett Hayton. And I just got to tell you guys, Barrett Hayton seemingly has had a season from hell at this point. And he was a guy that coming into the year was another guy that looked really, really good in the second half alongside Keller and Schmaltz. That first line was one of the best in the NHL second half last year. And he finished with 43 points in 82 games. And to me, I thought it was just going to continue to rise, being that first line center for Arizona. And again, benefiting from Keller and Schmaltz and how good they have been. But this year has just been a disaster. He went from that number 1 position to all over the place. The finishing just completely evaporated, and the health as well has also not been there. 10 points in 33 games, and pretty much everything that could go wrong for Hayton has gone wrong. And unfortunately for him, it's come at the worst time possible. And unfortunately for me, the 4th time in this video, I gotta give this breakout pick an F. Now, it got a lot better at number 13, because next up, I predicted Filip Hronek of the Vancouver Canucks, who, of course, they traded for at the deadline last season. And even though we got a chunk of change at the end of the year, really this year was the first time that he'd be an established force on Vancouver's defense. And obviously, playing next to Quinn Hughes has really enlarged Filip Hronek's value. And you can see this year in 67 games, he has 5 goals, 40 assists for 45 points. Really started the year off incredibly well. And even though he's tailored off a little bit, I still think he's been good in that offensive role. Is probably going to get overpaid because I think Hronek has definitely benefited from Quinn Hughes in a lot of ways. But still, as a breakout player, establishing himself in that next tier, especially in point production, he's on pace for 55 this year, which would blow his career mark out of the water. And that's a pretty big thing for him. In Vancouver, he's obviously fit at home pretty well and looking pretty good there too. And I'm going to give the pick a straight A. Now, this next one is really weird here. Coming in at 14, I predicted Bowen Byram of then the Colorado Avalanche, and I'm honestly not really sure how to grade this one. Just like Drysdale, I wanted Byram to come into the year and have a fully healthy season, really rising above and getting around maybe that 40 or 50 point pace and really using his skill set and his skating and the way he pushes into offensive play to really put up some major numbers. And in some ways we had seen that with Colorado. He started off pretty rough, but I would say over the last month in his stint with Colorado, he was actually looking really, really good. And finalized, got 20 points in 55 games. But then, of course, he gets traded to the Buffalo Sabres in that landmark Byram and Middlestat deal. And so far with Buffalo, he has been a monster. In 4 games, his 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points. He has been so good up the rush, so good in transition, stepping into the play in so many great ways offensively, and he's just looked right at home. It seems like Buffalo has told him to do whatever he wants to do to get the best results possible, and Byram is using what he's best at, using his skating and using the offensive mind in a great way, and so far we're seeing that. If he was with Buffalo this entire season, my prediction might have gone fully right, but for now I'm going to give it a B because so far he's looking good with Buffalo, but maybe next year is the year we fully see him explode. And then going on to the last pick of the video at number 15, I had Jonathan Drouin, another Avalanche player here. And this one I don't think has worked out maybe as well as Bowen Byram, but I think in the context and the situation that Drouin was in coming into Colorado, this season's been a pretty big success for him. This was a guy that played 58 games last year, but 34 the year before that, 44 the year before that, 27 the year before that, and hadn't really had a full season since 2019. And to me, that health was vitally important. And so far, we're seeing him on pace for 79 games. And in those games, 47 points as well, which would be his best since 2019 too. To me, I wanted to see Drouin get back to an offensive level that he could be consistent in and a health situation where he could be comfortable in as well with the Avs. And so far, we've seen that. And even though I don't think he's been overwhelmingly amazing as a complementary piece when he's alongside McKinnon and Ranson and all those guys, he's been good in his role and solid and competent, and that's what you want to see at this point. I think this was always a guy that I wanted to see be better than he was, and so far this year, we're actually seeing him play up to his potential, which is the least I could ask for. I don't think it was a home run that he's going to get, 60 plus points or anything like I maybe would have wanted, but I still think he's worked out pretty well for the Avs, and I'm going to give the pick a B-. But those are how my predictions have turned out a season later, and so far, they're looking okay. There were some that worked out really badly, some that worked out pretty well, but this was a really mixed bag. There were some great predictions and some really rough ones, but I hope you guys enjoyed the ride. It's been a great, unpredictable NHL season, and that's what I always love to see. I make all these predictions on the channel, but if all my predictions came right, the NHL would be absolutely boring. I want to see these players prove me wrong or prove me right, whatever it might be, and so far this season has been an absolute blast seeing everything happen. And I hope you guys have enjoyed it so far like I have. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. And of course, comment down below, what did you guys think of my breakout picks? And how did your breakout picks turn out? If you commented on that video, I want to see how you guys did. Go and see how you did and report back to me in the comments. I'd love to know what you guys think down there. And of course, make sure you share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online. Get my breakout grades out there. And click on this card for all my rankings content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, and goodbye.